And thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I am excited to be here and excited to share this space and this time with you. Just to introduce myself a little bit before I introduce our speaker. So my name's Caron, as you can tell from my accent. I'm not from around here, I'm from England. So I am a British trained midwife and nurse. But I have been working stateside for over 30 years. I've been working in the maternal child health space for all of those years that I have been here. I'm a certified life coach and have a life coaching business. And I like to mentor and coach women to their next best, whatever that is for them. So this area of seasonal affectiveness disorder and the mental maternal health space is really, really important. You know, we need to make a space for our moms and our families to be able to talk about the way that they feel, whether that is at any transition, any area of their journey. And sometimes in this time of fall and winter, sometimes it's hard to define whether we have some postpartum depression going on, or we have some seasonal affectiveness disorder going on, or a mix of both. So this is just a little conversation to talk about some of those symptoms, some things that might be going on, and to give some resources. You know, our moms and our families need resources in our communities. They have their providers, but we also need to be able to partner with them, come alongside them as doulas and community members and organizations to be able to work alongside them to help them walk through and navigate what can be a maze of this time in their lives, where their hormones are all out of whack, they're sleep deprived, they're not eating, they're not drinking. So some of the basic things of life, they're not necessarily taking care of because now they have this little one that takes all of their time. So just to be there for them and to have a support, have a basket, a holder for them to be able to transition through this time is really important, and to validate the way that they're feeling. So that's why we're here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about all of that, and I'm hoping that you guys have some questions. And I'm also a doula. I doula in every community that I've lived in for my friends and my family, and for anybody who calls me who needs a doula in labor, delivery, postpartum, pregnancy, all of it, breastfeeding, all of it. I do it all, and I love it all. So that's my wheelhouse. So I would really like to introduce to you our speaker this evening. So Alicia P. Harris is a licensed professional counselor and a licensed addictions counselor in the state of South Carolina. She is currently a doctoral student at the University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky and is pursuing her degree in counseling, education, and supervision. Alicia is a community action board member with the USC regarding recovery efforts for parenting mothers, and additional research is closely aligned in reducing healthcare disparities for marginalized groups. She's involved in her community, working on causes such as domestic violence and hopelessness. So I would like to thank you, Alicia, for saying yes to being our speaker this evening. And we are so excited for everything that you're going to bring. And I'm going to give you the floor. The first question, I have one question for you. Before you get into your presentation, if you want to introduce yourself a little more and tell us something that nobody may know about you.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you and Lexi for having me. And let me just say, Caron, you just don't know what to expect when somebody says, "Can you send me a copy of your bio?" I'm like, huh? What? So I am so grateful and thankful to be here. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. One thing I'll say that people don't know about me, I am originally from New Jersey. And so I graduated from the infamous S.A.D High School in Paterson, New Jersey, and Mr. Joe Clark was my principal. So Fair East Side. Uh,
Yes.
and yes, I was there when they filmed the movie. I did get a chance to meet Morgan Freeman. I don't know if any of you remember this show, but as a kid, I used to watch this show called The Electric Company. It was with Sesame Street, The Electric Company, and all that. And Morgan Freeman played on The Electric Company. Now, I'm a senior in high school, and he walks down the hall, and I blurt out, "Oh my God, it's the Electric Company man." So he got a good laugh out of that. And I was like, I'm not even gonna be embarrassed because it was an educational show. So whatever. But I am truly glad to be here. And usually everywhere I go, if I say I graduated Eastside, they're like, oh my God, sing the song. Well, we're not gonna get into that tonight. So
I was singing it in my head for you. It's fine.
thank you. Thank you. The other thing I want to talk about before we get into the presentation is why I am presenting this work. And as you heard, my studies in the doctoral program are to address healthcare disparities for Black pregnant women. I'll be focusing specifically on Black women who have suffered pregnancy loss. And so what does that look like from a culturally sensitive perspective as a counselor, that we render good service and good support? And what prompted me, if you know anything about research, usually research is prompted out of maybe a personal experience or something we've witnessed or heard about. Well, mine is kind of a little bit of both. I have 3 children. I'm a mother of 3 wonderful adult children. Thank God they're adults. And I have 4 beautiful grandchildren. But back in 2020, my youngest daughter was pregnant with triplet girls. They were identical. And unfortunately, they did not make it. She had to deliver them at 16 weeks. They were stillborn. And the only thing we were told was, sometimes these things happen. And I was like, well, that's not good enough for me, And so throughout this process, she had to go through the labor, she had to actually deliver. And so I had a number of roles in that room with her. I was her mom, yes. But my therapist I kept it on because I'm scanning and watching this unfold. And I'm like, okay, so when is the social worker or somebody going to come in and talk to her about her emotional stability? And that never happened. And when is the social worker going to come and talk to her about resources for grief because she's delivering babies that she's not going to take home? And that never happened. And so I became very angry, not only a mother and grandmother, as a Black woman, just some of the things that unfolded. And I started asking myself the question, well, how many other Black women have this happened to? And so it led me on a journey of research that started showing me things such as Black women die at 2 to 3 times the rate of white women, or even women in a third world country. And I need to understand, why is that happening in this day and age with the technology that we have? So that's what motivates me to do what I do. And as I give of myself, my hope is that I leave a legacy behind that has impacted this area to bridge that gap of healthcare disparities that Black women face, and to offer culturally sensitive support in times such as pregnancy loss, and things of that nature. So we're going to get into our presentation, and tonight we are talking about seasonal affective disorder and what impact it has on maternal mental health. Can somebody just let me know that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Because once you start sharing, it's limited. So let me get my stuff together over here. All right. Before we get into the S.A.D piece, let's talk a little bit about the perinatal and postpartum period. I like to give definition and context for what I'm presenting on. So please bear with me because I know you brilliant ladies probably know a lot of this stuff. But the perinatal period, that's the time frame from conception through the first year after giving birth. So this definition takes into consideration the risk at any stage to include fluctuations in hormones, in pregnancy, post-birth, onset, lactation, weaning, reemergence, and menstruation. And then we have the postpartum period, which is the time frame immediately after birth through the first 6 weeks of a baby's life. And these are the medical definitions for both of those terms. Within the perinatal space, they have perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. So Caron talked a little bit about depression versus seasonal affective disorder. There are several mood changes that pregnant women can experience, whether they had a pre-existing mood or anxiety disorder, or if pregnancy has triggered that. So I wanted to give you a little information there as well. Perinatal means in pregnancy or the postpartum period. The mood is either depression, bipolar, or psychosis. Anxiety is comprised of general anxiety disorder, as well as panic attacks. You may have heard women talk about having panic attacks. Some are experiencing obsessive compulsive disorder. And, we make jokes about these things, right? And we really shouldn't. If someone is very organized and neat, you be like, girl, you just so OCD. But we wonder why there's such a stigma on mental health. And especially for Black people, we don't seek out mental health as much as we should, because we talk about it so flippantly and we're quick to say, oh, she's just crazy, ain't nothing wrong with her, when really this woman could be suffering with some behavioral issues. There are post-traumatic stress disorders. I won't go a lot into that tonight, but did you realize that, and I'm sure you have, that childbirth can, prompt PTSD, depending on the experience, whether you've had a difficult childbirth, the baby was healthy and alive, but maybe you went through, really bad labor. Maybe you wanted an epidural, they didn't give it to you or get it to you in time. Just the mere fact that you have strangers, just invading your body and invading your space, those things can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. And they affect people at any time during their lives, but we're specifically tonight talking about women who are pregnant. Just a few statistics I have up here, and feel free to drop any questions or comments in the chat as we go. Lexi and Caron will be watching that for me. Some statistics are up to 80% of cases go undiagnosed or untreated due to stigma, lack of awareness, and scarcity of specialized treatment options. Some women live in maternity deserts, which means there may not be a birthing center or hospital within 45 minutes of where they live. So there's a lack of ability to access care. Up to 40% of low-income women experience a PMAD in the perinatal period, and 50% of PMADs develop during pregnancy. You may have never experienced anxiety and or depression, but there's something going on during this pregnancy that has adversely impacted your mental well-being. And then untreated PMADs can lead to poor mother-baby attachment and developmental delays in children. And Caron, I know you can speak to that well. When, if you're depressed, if you are consumed with anxiety, you may not want to bond with your baby, or you may not know how to. And so we have to acknowledge that. And then PMADs are a leading cause of maternal mortality in the US. There has been a high rate of suicide amongst pregnant women or postpartum women that I don't think gets enough attention. And these are some of the symptoms that PMADs can include, such as perinatal depression, which consists of low mood, sadness, diminished pleasure, or hopelessness. Perinatal anxiety consists of constant worry, intrusive thoughts, can't turn off the brain. Sometimes you'll have mothers that feel like, oh, my baby can't stand me. They don't like me. They're always crying. I'm doing something wrong. I'm not a good mother. Perinatal OCD, which can be obsessive thoughts, rituals, compulsions to neutralize anxiety. A mother may say, I need to get all the knives out of the house because I'm having these thoughts of what if I were to stab my baby? And they may not even have a desire to do so, but they become so fearful and so obsessed that they don't know how to navigate that process. Or perinatal PTSD, avoidance, nightmares, flashbacks, and hyperarousal. We talked about that a little bit on the previous slide. And then postpartum psychosis, delusions, hallucinations, paranoia, disorganization. Mom may think that people are trying to steal the baby, or they may think that, we've heard all types of stories in the media where new moms have thought that their babies were possessed with a demonic spirit. And so they, took their lives. PMADs are extremely, extremely important, and we have to be mindful of those. So today we're talking about seasonal affective disorder. And so what I have here is that primarily it affects people during the fall and winter months, right? Because it gets darker earlier. I don't know about you, but I love sunshine. I love to be outside when it's sunny. That's why spring and summer, are I'm hesitating because I want to say they're my favorite times of year, but in South Carolina, when it is 100 degrees and it feels like it's 110, well, let's just say I look outside through the window and let the sun come in because it's too hot. But it can be persistent, pervasive symptoms of depression, and individual may experience frequent fatigue and increased sleep. All you want to do is sleep and eat. I did not realize this until I was researching. There's an increased craving for carbohydrates, those chips. You sit and you watch movies, and all of a sudden you've consumed a whole bag of kettle barbecue Lay's kettle chips. Or you want to increase chocolate and different types of things, mashed potatoes. This sounds so good because it's cold outside and with some good gravy. Well, these are all symptoms that someone who is dealing with seasonal affective disorder can face. And so we know that every now and then everybody feels sad at some point, and people react to it in different ways. And so you may let yourself, like I said, sink into feelings and cope. Some people cope by crying, listening to sad music, or spending some time alone. Somebody put in there about the Mary J song that she was in transition. Mary J, to me, ever since I've known her as an artist, she expresses, you can almost tell where she is, happy, sad, fulfilled by her music. And that's been one of her traits. And so some people may listen to sad music. But like sadness, depression is common and a normal part of life for a lot of people. But it's important to know what makes the difference so you can figure out when someone or even yourself needs more support. And what I have here is I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison of seasonal affective disorder symptoms versus depression. And if you take a look at this slide, they are pretty similar. The symptoms are pretty similar. It's as such sad. You may have daytime fatigue, difficulty concentrating, feeling of hopelessness, increased irritability, lack of interest in social activities. And that one is key because it's getting darker earlier, it's colder. So then you have the reason to say, well, I really don't want to go out because it's dark and it's cold. And so you can, if you're not careful, one can find themselves becoming very isolated. And then that isolation, if on an extended period of time, can move you over to the right side of the slide, and you could be experiencing symptoms of depression. And it talks about unhappiness as well as weight gain. When you look over to the right side, you do see some similarities, but then you also see under depression, suicidal thoughts, plans, or intentions. So if it is prolonged, and depending on the intensity of it, an individual can have thoughts of suicide and even plan out or intend to take their life. With depression, your energy, your rest does not restore. It's almost as if you're in this constant state of tiredness. Have you ever yourself or heard somebody say, oh my God, I'm just so tired all the time? Why am I so tired all the time? I just want to go to bed. I just want to stay in the bed. Doesn't mean that you're depressed, but if you can think back and realize that I've been saying this for a few weeks now, I might need to check and see what is the underlying prompting for this, fatigue that I'm feeling and the lack of desire to do any type of activities. Here are some facts about seasonal affective disorder. 2 million people are thought to be affected by seasonal affective disorder in the UK and Ireland alone. And so I think about a state like Alaska, where I can't remember if is it 6 months that it's dark, and then that's a long time. When you think about what we deal with here, right now we're in that daylight savings time. So around November, it starts getting darker early. And then I think, what is it, March or April, we come out of that. But if you think of, at least we get daylight. In Alaska, is completely different. Or someplace like Washington State, where they may not have increased darkness, but they get a lot of rain. So it's very dreary weather. And so people who suffer from seasonal affective disorder, that's not the most ideal places to live. Another thing that stood out to me is that it can affect people of any age. It usually appears between the ages of 18 and 30. And it is a form of depression, as we've already talked about. But lack of sunlight disrupts your circadian rhythm, which is our natural body clock and is responsible for many functions of the human body, such as digestion and appetite, sleep quality and duration, and general mood. And I recently went to the pulmonologist because I have sleep apnea. And I was telling him about, just in the morning, I'm still kind of like groggy, and I can't, I don't have that pep that I would like to have. And he talked to me about the fact that if you have a lack of sunlight, because I work 100% remote from home, so I'm not leaving to go to the office. I wake up, I, get dressed, I come in my office. Now the windows, the blinds are open, but I'm not actually going out into the sunlight. And he says that could be affecting you because it's taking your brain longer to wake up because you're not absorbing that sunlight. I was like, wow. So just imagine someone who's dealing with seasonal affective disorder and the role that that plays on their circadian rhythm. I wanted to list some preventions and treatments for seasonal affective disorder. I don't know if you've ever heard of light box therapy, but it is, okay, I see some head shaking. Yes, it's a S.A.D lamp, And so they use light therapy to replicate the sunlight. We just talked about that. And to trick the body into thinking it's warmer months and trigger the body to release serotonin. So starting light box therapy in early autumn may prevent S.A.D from developing during the winter months. And the light boxes or light box therapy lamps mimic outdoor light by emitting a broad spectrum of ultraviolet light. They usually recommend that you sit in front of this light for about 30 minutes a day to increase the benefits of that. And so people will use that, like if you're sitting drinking your morning coffee, doing your devotional, or if you work from home right before you're getting ready to log on, they say that that usually helps out quite a bit. Another treatment would be psychotherapy. I am a licensed clinician, and so sometimes talk therapy can be extremely helpful in terms of expressing how you're feeling, helping you to develop some coping skills that would be good during that time of year. Because along with the earlier darkness and the cold comes the holidays. And so if you are one that has had traumatic losses or situations happen during the holidays, all of that compounds on your emotional and mental wellness. So it may be great to reach out to a therapist. And I'm always puzzled, and I ask people this question all the time. We will go every year, us ladies will get our mammogram, we will have our pap smear, but we will not go and get a mental health checkup every year. That amazes me. And I say that as a therapist, and I too have to go and get it. You know, the therapists have to have have to have a mental health checkup unless they are no good to you. But in some cases, medication may be the answer. And we know that when women are pregnant, there are certain medications they cannot take. So I am not here to ascribe to any type of medication. What I would say is that is a very good conversation to have with your obstetrician and or psychiatrist and clinician if you have both. And then developing some self-care steps. It may be exercising. It may be, although it gets darker earlier, maybe taking a walk while it's light outside, or doing some exercise in the home, making sure you're staying hydrated and eating as healthy as you can. Because remember, a few slides back, it talked about the increased cravings for carbohydrates. So being knowledgeable of that and knowing that it's not saying you can't have carbohydrates, but you want to make sure you're not overloading with the carbohydrates. And these are some resources that I wanted to list, and it gives you information on the light boxes. Those are some websites that I looked up to see what light boxes were, what the cost was and what type of brands they had out there. And, Amazon just has everything. My daughter has an inside family joke about Amazon because she used to work there. She was like, "Mom, you could buy crack on Amazon." And I'm like, "Don't tell me that." So I wanted to give those resources because just in case anybody was interested. And then these are just the references that I used to put this presentation together. And that is the end of our S.A.D and safe presentation. Thank you so much for having me today. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you so much, Alicia. That was so informative and just a really good time of getting some really good information.